Presentation will be from facility LINX, which is LINX is a valuable and innovative facilitator of collaboration between universities and industry within the area of neutrons and X-ray technology, which is being established in 2016. LINX is releasing the great potential of the established industry portal and continue to generate value through many projects, workshops and networks connecting the scientific and commercial world. More in details about LINX, I'm happy to give the floor to Jakob Becker-Christensen, Chief Executive Officer from LINX in Denmark. Jakob, the floor is yours. There is sound.
Yes, I just remembered.
Sound it is. Thank you.
Just remembered now. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll just see if I can share my screen here. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for the kind words. I will, over the next 20 minutes, try to talk a little bit about what LINX does and how we are structured and how it works and how it can possibly act as a template for what other people might do everywhere, obviously. So let me just see if I can minimize this bit. Yeah. Can everybody see this screen?
Yes, we can.
You can, good. Mm-hmm. So anyway, as I already partially revealed, I will talk about micro innovation because that's basically what we do in LINX, and that is sort of part of the success. Well, it's the key to our success, I would say. I have chosen two title screens because why not? The second one is the use of innovation platforms, and that springs from the fact that LINX is operating as an innovation platform. Industry portal, yes, but we have actually developed two platform status, and I will talk more about what that means. First, myself, the nice picture. As already mentioned by you, Mr. Chairman, I'm CEO of this industry portal LINX. We are a mediator organization between industry and academia. So basically, we try to promote the industrial use and implementation of research tools using X-rays and neutrons. So many of these things are currently sitting at universities, and some politicians in Denmark thought that they might be valuable for job creation and so on if promoted in industry. So that meant that we got a grant, or a grant was released, 6.3 million euro, if my math serves, from this 5-year period. And that is basically the money that we have to have available to disperse in projects. And so far we have 16 companies, mostly Danish, a few in Germany and Sweden, 9 knowledge institutions, 3 technological institutes, and 3 sponsors. So that is basically the club that we have now. And I should mention that club is very literal because LINX is actually structured as a non-profit organization to provide a neutral ground for this meeting thing. So our companies are everything from tiny companies, 2 people, to Novo Nordisk, whom have thousands upon thousands and sell internationally. Our factory floor. The driving force behind what we do is that we have 3 Danish universities, Copenhagen, Aarhus University, and the Technical University, connected to us as sort of prime partners among universities. They are there because they have key experience in Denmark. They're sort of the powerhouses of neutron and X-ray knowledge and experience in Denmark. So Copenhagen is very good at small angle scattering and related techniques. Aarhus University is good at crystallography, and DTU at imaging. So that is sort of the triangle that is being pushed to industry by us. We try to help SMEs as much as possible. I will get back to that a little later. And as I mentioned, we operate presently as an innovation platform, also to be defined later. And one final thing, which is not to be underestimated, is that we have a very strong focus on outreach and promotion. And that is necessary because if you think about it, outreach, promotion, storytelling, getting messages out there, universities are poorly suited for that because they do research, they do teaching and so on. There's nowhere usually in that charter that they must do this. technological institutes, they work closely with industry, so they're not allowed to for IPR reasons and so on and so on. But here we actually have a special organization, us, that are able to tell these stories on neutral grounds, which is necessary, otherwise you don't get people on board. On SMEs in Denmark, just to sort of focus on that for a brief moment, they are usually not motivated to use research expertise, which is sad. They carry less than 10% of all the corporate spending we have in Denmark, and I think this is a picture that is pretty recognizable for most nations. They have poor access to academic expertise, which is of course another thing that LINX can help them to, connecting them to these 3 core universities. And their challenges tend to be simple but crippling. Basically, big companies, they come to us with nice to have challenges. It is something that's somewhere in their project portfolio, but which they want a closer look at to see whether it should gain priority or not. However, SMEs, they come to us with need to have. That is some, challenges that could make or break their company. So that is an interesting distinction. And also for small companies, it's hard to navigate the innovation system, which is why it's good with a mediator, because we can help them doing that. This is just a brief graph just to show that I don't speak out of thin air. This is sort of the research spending in Denmark. And you can see at the bottom of the curve, you have the top 5 companies in Denmark. They carry 30% of all research spending in Denmark. And if you step to the top 500 companies, they carry 98% of all research spending. And the flattening of the curves, of course, shows that there's not really any research spending on the rest, which means that there are zero potential for them to engage in X-rays or neutrons and facilities if they don't get help. Our funding landscape in 30 seconds is that we have one fund which dominates everything. It's called the Innovation Fund Denmark. They also funded us. They have some programs, major, small, some special programs. But if you read down this list, you will see an issue. You will actually see a hole. You see something that is not covered here. And basically, if you see the 2 top lines, you have some huge projects for academia industry, and you have some very small things for research startup. And the bottom line, InnoBooster, that's everything else. So they basically have one program that covers the bulk of all company innovation. So that means that we have a system here which favors major projects and startups, but and the InnoBooster, as was the bottom line, it is there, but they get 300 applications per week, which is not useful or helpful at least. And that means that all the simple small-scale projects which are suitable for InnoBooster, they face very hard odds. They don't get any feedback. They basically just get a stamp that says declined or accepted. And that's a problem, but that leaves also the necessity for something more, something extra. And of course, I'm working myself to the point that LINX is part of that extra. But if you take all the sum, if you do the integration over all the small scale innovation that's going on in beyond the top 200 or top 500 companies, then you actually get quite a width of innovation. The total volume is small, but the width is huge because you have so many companies involved. So that brings me to this point of micro-innovation for my first title slide. It means that we, with LINX, are trying to de-risk simple and practical challenges which are here and now. And obviously here is the subtext which involves X-rays on neutrons. That is because that's our mandate, that's what we're here for. But basically it's about de-risking. It's about people don't want to make that step unless they get some kind of encouragement and unless it is more or less, something they can do without risking their companies, especially for SMEs. So we are part of the counterpart basically to these huge projects, the very ambitious projects that span huge chasms of innovation where we sort of provide a plank just to get across a ditch. That can be equally important. And that means that we only deliberately go for one step up in TRL, so technological readiness level. That's not a lot. but that's enough usually to bring companies to the point where they can actually continue their own development without our assistance, and hopefully having received a good impression of what neutrons and X-rays can do, so it sits in the back of their mind that they might actually use that in the future for different kind of challenges. And it is very easy to get engaged in because you don't have to make, a huge commitment, just getting one step ahead. That's kind of doable. Project examples. The reason why I don't refer you here to a web page is that we are actually changing the web page like this week. So the link is not really existing yet. But if you are interested, you are more than welcome to get back to me, and then I can show you some of the project cases that we are making. But just leafing through projects, a sample of projects very briefly. We're looking at production speed, the packaging machines, that's with Tetra Pak. We are looking at to validate materials for water treatment systems. So basically that's self-cleaning filters for microplast filtration. Mineralization and heat exchangers to provide more efficient heat exchangers ultimately, or better coating to prevent the mineralization. Fiber networks, stone wool, that's Rockwool International. Track and trace and model for water ingression with different kind of plastics, rubbers, and so on and so on. There are many products where people are very uninterested in water getting inside because, it causes all kinds of problems. Barrier protections in semiconductors, antibiotic diffusion in hospital products, and business potential from biochar, from pyrolysis, so that's biogas, thermal biogas production, mechanisms in medical equipment. There's tons of things, and all of these things are basically encompassed with the three techniques of small angle scattering, crystallography, and imaging. Some of these involve one technique, some of these involve several. So that's sort of, and some of them one company and sometimes several companies. So it can be bilateral projects, trilateral, and so on and so on. That depends on what it is. So anyway, I can go into detail with these if you have questions towards the end, but for now, I just want to step on. The whole point of this is that we want people to fail fast and fail cheap if they fail. Small projects, and our projects are only 6 months. That's not very long for an innovation project, but that also means that we need to get started quick and we can finalize it quickly. And that means that they are low budgeted. They are not very expensive, especially compared to these enormous innovation projects that other people run. And it enables the quick decision on what actually works, which means that we, instead of doing one commitment for 3 years in a huge budget, we basically string along larger projects by small ones. So you get 6 months and then you see, okay, what worked, what didn't work. You adjust, you make another project based on that experience, and so on and so on. That means that failure doesn't cost that much. And that means that you can adapt very dynamically, which is very useful for companies. They don't like, the long-term commitments because their budgets, their liquidity, all sorts of things can suffer. Now, innovation platforms, essentially, because that's how we operate. It's a microcosmos, basically, for public-private collaboration. So it's a small sort of a miniature foundation in the foundation, you could say. We are staffed with experts. That's a person such as me. I have a PhD in materials chemistry. Consultants, we are mediators. And we are first and foremost a fast track to co-finance projects. In our case, it is done in the way that we actually have our own money to disperse the project. So we are, in fact, a miniature foundation, essentially, under the Innovation Foundation, our Innovation Fund Denmark. So we can help companies, but there could be other ways to help companies to co-financing. But basically, they need that help. We are not just guides and advisors. Companies, they sometimes choke on the amount of guidance and advising that they get because it actually doesn't lead to the de-risking that is crucial. They don't get, a workable operative plan. They just get a direction. That's not enough. And finally, we and any innovation platform should be a neutral third party, non-profit organization in our case, because otherwise industry can come and claim that we are just doing the university's business and vice versa, because universities and industry traditionally don't always know how to collaborate well, just saying.
Yes, we have some kind of technical issues with Jakob. Most probably the internet has frozen, and we will try to regain connection at this particular moment. Until this, you can easily post your questions in a Q&A session, and hopefully we will get Jakob back in a very short time. Definitely a pretty interesting story considering cooperation, and we would be extremely happy if this connection is coming back to us at this particular moment, because we have also already a couple of questions coming in for Jakob. I will make a contact with the organizers behind the scenes. How are we? How are we with Jakob? Okay, we are waiting for signal to coming back, and it will be back in a very short time. So for those who are watching us, we are in the first part of the day. In the first part of the day is infrastructure sessions, when we are speaking on various kind of facilities which are available for scientists and science and experts, and also commercial sector. And after lunch in the afternoon session, we're going to speak already from science and industry perspective, sharing the stories on cooperation and on the way how to build up scientific communities. And at this particular moment, I have a feeling that Jakob is back on track, and we are happy to have you back, Jakob.
Yeah, my apologies. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I don't think my network failed actually, but let's just continue. I'm almost done. Just need to leave down through all these things that we already talked about. This is, yeah, I could do this in a more efficient way, but never mind. Good. I don't know where you fell off, but this is the final slide that I showed.
That's the slide. That's the slide, yes.
Good. You saw it, all of it. Okay, good. So stepping on, our advantage is that we have high expertise in the X-rays and neutron business, because otherwise people will not believe us. We do the short projects, we have relatively small budgets, and we have some sensible levels of co-financing, because it's like if you co-finance 10 or 20 or 30%, people companies are usually, yeah, okay, but that can still break us if it fails. And that's not helpful for projects they don't want to engage. And again, the TRL, one level, nothing major, nothing massive. And we have very close contact to our funding body, the Innovation Fund Denmark. We have a contact person in the fund, which is basically a very useful partner, because he can tell us whether the projects are good or bad and how to adopt them and adapt them and so on. And these properties are what I would recommend in anybody who wants to, within their country or whatever, wants to define an innovation platform. Look for these things, because that's something where LINX have so far been a living lab showing that this actually can work. So as a prototype, as I said, a living lab for the possible shape of how this can be done. Here's some of the takeaways. As already was mentioned in my introduction, we stimulate some network building, but it's basically and mainly about de-risking. It's about lifting the risk off the shoulders of companies, because then even obscure techniques such as X-rays and neutrons and stuff that to them are obscure, at least to we who are in it on a more regular basis, it's commonplace. But for them, they don't want techniques; they want solutions. So the role that we are playing is that we basically are translators of what the techniques can do into a solution-oriented language that the companies that turn them on. And then you need the de-risking, because they go, yeah, that's fine. You can solve our problem this way, you think, but how do we know? And then we say, okay, fine. We can help you cover some of your expenses. Just trust us. We can do this. And then they are actually engaging. So finally, what have we been taught? It's very useful with this consultant mediator role, and a close contact to funding body is very important. They like having a contact person, which is me, and I like having a contact person who sits in the innovation fund. And fund, there must be money somewhere, because otherwise they won't do it. And we, as a mediator, must involve ourselves in every project. They are run directly between companies and universities, but I am there with a guiding hand, and I'm also there as sort of the parent in the room. If something goes completely wrong, then people, you know, sorry, we don't hear from this guy or whatever, you know, people can also involve me. And we have weekly meetings where we update on our projects. And then finally, also the dissemination and outreach. As I mentioned, we need the storytelling. We need all these projects to get out there to share what has been achieved, because that's the way we get to the next companies and see, look what has been done. We can actually help you as well. And then again, what can be done? That's the science of it. You need the scientific skill. You need it to be a persuasive thing. For us, we of course must summarize the impact for the Innovation Fund, and then we have certain goals here, advice on the do's and don'ts for future platforms. That's a big one, and we are asked a lot for now about that. And we want to clarify value propositions to companies, what's actually make them engage, because that's not, in this day and age, this is a fluent thing. It changes over time, but there has not been many good recent experiments on that here in Denmark, at least in this way of doing things. This is my final slide. What is the recipe? You find a funding source. In our case, it's Innovation Fund Denmark. It could be anything, basically, private fund, whatever, but you need money in there. There's no way around the money. You can't just advise yourself way out of this. It is not enough. Then you establish a thematic innovation platform. And thematic, in our case, it's X-rays and neutrons, but it could be anything. It could be robot technology. It could be visualizing product development, or anything. Basically, you could come up with a theme. And that, of course, needs a base grant, because you need somebody to start engaging with companies who are actually paid a salary, even from day one. You need some powerhouses, universities who can actually do that and who have the interface and the connections into the large facilities, and who can also help getting the companies in there, not necessarily paying it. And then you need to be careful about who you hire into the platform. You need somebody with high scientific expertise in that theme. In LINX, that is me. You need some strong outreach and dissemination abilities. We have 2 journalists working part-time. And we also have a scientific writer. We have a layman's writer who deliberately does not have a scientific background. He is scientifically interested, but he does not have a scientific background, which means that he writes our cases that come out of universities naturally in a layman's language, which of course then must be adapted a lot for content, because he doesn't get everything right. But that's extremely useful. So we basically publish 2 parallel lines of cases, one from universities that are rather technical, and one from LINX directly, which are more layman and solutions oriented. Finally, the next thing and the final thing is, of course, that you must seek out companies. You must present the possibilities. I do that. I sit there with CEOs or managers or whatever. You must identify the advantages of using the techniques, in our case, whatever the theme is demanding of you. And then you need to develop the collaborations and go, yeah, I hear you. You have this and that you want, or you have this and that challenge, or you need something, or blah, 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 blah. I think I know a way to at least get you part of that way. So let me talk with people, let me get back to you. We can set something up like this, and it will not be any trouble to you. Basically, that's what you propose. Of course, it will be a little trouble for the company along the way, and they must do the project. But the whole run-up to the project, you need a very solid help and guiding hand, and it basically needs to wash into the front door of the company, because they are too preoccupied with tons of other things if you don't. So that is basically what I have for now. I know that I exceeded my time just a little bit, but since we are slightly ahead of schedule, I believe, then I hope that is acceptable. So I guess this is time for question now, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yes, it is, and really we have a bit ahead of time, so no problem with the interesting story you are sharing. We have many questions. In fact, I will try to press them in one common question, which is considering the international cooperation, and do you do international cooperations? And as a sub-question to that is, do you help your enterprises with the export strategies and international partners within, if they are interested in and if they need that in the logical development of their companies?
Taking the final project first, we help the companies with whatever we can help them with that has any kind of use or of X-rays and neutrons. And the challenges are really broad, actually. Sometimes it is a product they want to develop on, or they want it faster to market. Sometimes they want some of their processes investigated better so they can assess warranties. Sometimes they want basically just to have better documentation and things so they can make investor proposals. There's really a lot of things. Export, certainly. We have at least two companies that come to my mind who are exclusively selling abroad. They don't have any domestic market in Denmark. JJ X-ray, for instance, some of you will know them. They deliver X-ray equipment for synchrotrons and also for neutron sources. Sole export company. So certainly we do. As for international partners, yes, we do. I mean, we have in Germany we have academic partners, that's DAISY, and in Sweden we have Tetra Pak as a company, and we also have RISE, a technological institute, and so on. So some of our international help, you can say, goes via the technological institutes. Directly, yes, too. However, at this point, we are in the final year of LINX, which means that for now, of course, we need to look towards what is going to happen next. And that next is currently being discussed at different levels. I have no doubt that there will be a sequel, but the exact shape of that is being discussed also among, the officials in the ministry and so on and so on. It is my guess that there will certainly be an international dimension of whatever comes next. But if the funding is Danish, then it is also my prediction that there must be some sort of Danish collaboration, some Danish company involvement. So if bi- or trilateral projects can be done, which involve international partners, certainly. The only thing that's necessary is that you need to be a member of LINX. We are a club, we are an association, and we're cheap. It's not expensive, let me tell you that. We're not risking people for money. But that's the base requirement, and then you need to assent to the collaboration agreement. Done.
Okay, then we have a question. Is there other formations like LINX, and not only in Denmark, but do you have some kind of organizations abroad which are doing the same as LINX but in other countries?
The quick question is no, I don't. Not exactly in the same way. There are some big facilities who have nice programs that actually work well with, the industry liaison office, and that is, and of course that lifts some of the stuff off LINX. The problem is always the funding. That you need the money. So unless the facility X is willing to actually donate money into this instead of making money of it right here and right now, if they want to make that as an investment, then yes. But no, there's nothing that comes to my mind right now anywhere else. And I would like, if any of the participants here know of somebody who are actually doing the same things, there are some things in EU projects, the Carrot projects and so on, but that again, that's mediatorship. That's not sort of the more direct project funding. There's less of that. If any of you out there know anything, then please drop me an email, because I would be interested, also for the sake of the Danish LINX, to sort of get an overview, get a better overview, because frankly, I'm quite busy with managing the organization right now, so any help is welcome.
Okay, and the final question is, many of the project examples may be very engineering related, and there is need for specific knowledge. Is there understanding enough to cater for those projects? I believe the question is about the expertise. Do you have enough if those are very engineering related projects that are hanged in?
Yes, we have, because the engineering side of it is usually held mostly by the company. It is intrinsic in the projects that they need university expertise. If they just needed a technological service, then there are other people where they can buy that. But with LINX, it is understood that you need something which has a high scientific level. And the advantage of universities is that they're usually at the forefront. They're developing this knowledge. So they are educating the people who will later on work with it, but that means that they actually have quite a good head start on many things. And they are also quite flexible because they're big. So, I mean, at DTU, our technical university, for instance, it is not only DTU physics, they also involve DTU compute, who funnily enough develop software and computer models. So what we provide companies with basically are research-based tools. Sometimes that can be a software thing. That is quite often the case, actually, a modeling software, which is then sort of handed over to the company afterwards, so they can basically, yeah, okay, here you go. If you do similar measurements, either on in-house instruments or wherever you want to have these measurements done, then you can sort of apply this and you can get the kind of results that you want. A bespoke solution just for you, sir. That's something that we pride ourselves in, but that's of course also a necessary distinction, because in order to legally be able to fund industry or co-fund industry, there must be an academic partner. There must be a public body. And of course, there must be a relevant need and use of the knowledge that that public body brings, this university brings. Otherwise, the innovation fund, who funds us, would of course not allow it. So I know that doesn't exactly answer the question, but I think I answered like the 10 sub-questions that sort of orbit it. So is there any following up to this, or what do you think? Anything that could be specified more?
I think it's okay at a particular moment, and if there's going to be need for additional answers, then definitely all day long there can be additional questions, and then they will be addressed to you directly. So at this particular moment we are absolutely fine, and thank you very much for your answers. And